Warm greetings, everyone. On behalf of W4W Foundation, a think tank instituted as Citizens Collective, we welcome you to another session of Wednesdays for Water. The conversation today is on serving a pipe dream, water supply in metros. Before we get into the session, a brief overview of what Wednesdays for Water is. The objective of Wednesdays for Water is to engage in conversation with water experts, grassroots practitioners, policymakers, and youth to explore the complex intertwined issues associated with water and the possible solutions the water workers and enthusiasts are trying to work upon and are seeking. Wednesdays for Water has expanded since then to have more activities online as Friday Waters and Monday Munching with Women for Water, besides organizing on-site water workshops, water talks and walks, seminars, special courses, conference panels, to continue the water conversation in various possible ways. At W4W, we strongly believe that water conversations are the only way to move towards water conservation. What is more interesting is this signature series, Wednesdays for Water, is often referred as the full form of W4W Foundation, whereas W4W Foundation stands for many abbreviations for the first W, where the second W is, of course, water. So W4W stands for V for Water, World for Water, Worry for Water, Wisdom for Water, Women for Water. And you can think about it, Walk for Water, Wheels for Water, something like this, like there are 11 abbreviations. However, we are very proud that Wednesdays for Water has made its mark. We are now nearly 340 sessions old, making us one of the longest water conversations. In today's session on serving a pipe dream, water supply in the metros, we have Dr. Sachin Tiwale, Karthikeyan Ramalingam, and Kriti Batra as our speakers. And I have also had the privilege to read their work, and I'm really looking forward to interact with them. My name is Mansee Bal Bhargava, and I'm the moderator and host for the session today from W4W. As we are discussing this interesting as well as important topic, we are also aware that the centralized water supply is perceived as a key approach for supplying water to most Indian cities. However, it is also true that there are alternate sources. And I think I'm going to discuss with all our speakers the nuances, the opportunities, and challenges of the main source of water perceived and the alternate sources. So I'm going to invite Kriti Batra first as our first speakers. And before I do that, a brief introduction of her resume. Kriti Batra is based out of Calcutta, and she's an independent researcher holding a master's in policy and governance from Tata Institute of Social Sciences, Mumbai, where she also had silver medal in her course. She has a bachelor's in political science from St. Xavier's, Kolkata, and she holds a keen interest in urban water management and water conflicts. Her work explores the intersectionality of policy, governance, and infrastructure. She also has a strong interest in data and technology with her to work, and she actually leads her work on AI trainer. Thank you so much, Kriti, as well as Karthikeyan and Sachin. But before I introduce them, I would like to invite you to make your presentation, and thanks a lot for taking out time.
Hi, thank you. I'm just going to show.
Kriti?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes, very low, but I do hear you. Yes.
I just share this. So I'm going to start now. I'm going to begin by talking about the formal water supply. So the formal water supply is basically water provided by the public utilities from the source to the households through a piped network. This formal water supply system has sort of established its monopoly in society, with the centralized piped water supply as the key technology for providing water in the cities. However, various limitations have been identified, such as the aging infrastructure, poor quality of water, and selective coverage, and so on. So, in the year 2018 and 19, as the part of my thesis, we actually studied the city of Kolkata, wherein I did a survey, and the sample size for this survey was 306. 10% of the total, which is 144 wards, was selected. That gives us 14 wards, and these 14 wards were chosen on the basis of the coverage of municipal water supply in any given ward, and we made sure that these were geographically spread out. So here you can see the map. We've chosen wards which are geographically spread out, and these three colors highlight the coverage based on the municipal connections in any ward. So the green highlights high category of connections, which is above 90%, and the medium category highlights the 70 to 90% connections, and low category highlights less than 70% connection in any ward. um, Now, yeah, so if we look at the household dependence for domestic use, we can see that as much as 78% of the households depend on the KMC water, which is the CPWS, centralized pipe water supply here. And other households have started depending on other sources also, such as borewell, packaged drinking water, PDW is packaged drinking water, tanker, hand pumps, and pots. If we look at drinking water exclusively, we see 46% of the households depending on municipality water for drinking. However, as many as 54% depend on other sources of water for drinking. And looking at the 46% which actually depend on KMC water for drinking, as many as 65% of that 46% actually prefers to pre-treat the water at home before drinking. Now, if we look at this trend class wise, uh, in the upper class, if we look at the upper class here, 75% of the people who actually depend on KMC water, 40% of those merely use it for drinking, and 36% of those actually prefer to pre-treat at home before drinking it. This trend is similar across all the three classes. Now, while it may be a common perception that a public utility would be providing similar service across the town, this is not the case, because the service actually differs across wards. For example, certain wards receive clean drinking water for only an hour, uh, and for the rest of the hours they receive muddy water, which is not fit for use in any way. Also, respondents have highlighted issues such as poor water quality, inadequate pressure, selective availability. So, selective availability, even in some of the posh areas of Calcutta, it's called Russell Street here. It's not connected to KMC water supply, and as I mentioned, short duration of availability of clean drinking water. So basically, merely 10% of the sample population actually considers KMC water supply to be good. Um, so, given the scenario of the formal water supply, there has been an emergence of small scale independent providers of water. Um, and as much as 43% of this population depends on it in the form of 20-liter RO jars. Um, so if we look at if we look at the households that exclusively depend on packaged drinking water and exclude like they choose to depend on SSIPs despite having connection to municipality water, we can see it here class wise. So for example, in the upper class, 58% of the people actually depend on packaged drinking water, but 50% here have actually decided, have chosen to depend on packaged drinking water despite having the municipality water connection. So if there are three categories of water service providers that I've studied. The first is the national and transnational food and beverage companies, which are your popular food, popular water brands such as Aquafina. There's Kinley, Bisleri. These water jars are priced somewhere around 100 per jar of water. And then come your local companies, which are the licensed and the unlicensed companies. So licensed companies are the ones which you know they have all the licenses and they adhere to water quality standards, while the unlicensed companies, they don't have any licenses, which are basically the license from the FSSAI, BIS license, and the ISI license. Um, yeah. So if we look at the dependence on each type of these service providers, as much as 19% of the house sample population depends on unlicensed small scale independent providers. Now, if we look at the supply chain, there comes the manufacturers, distributors, and the retailers. Uh, the packaged water here in this, since it's a very competitive market, it can be easily tempered with. It is very easy for the manufacturers to enter the market. There are no regular checks at the manufacturing units. So the licenses may not be renewed on time, or the quality standards may or may not be adhered to. Also, there have been very many cases of water tempering by the distributors also, wherein they receive the empty bottles back from the retailers or the customers, and then they fill those with untreated waters. They use the brand stickers illegally. And there was a case in Calcutta, when I had interviewed one of the manufacturers. They told me that they had received a complaint regarding water quality being poor, and then they discovered that there was water tempering actually by the distributors. So in 2008, there is, given that there is water tempering and the quality may not be adhered to, there is a severe need for regulation. There was also another case in 2018 where many people fell sick in few wards in Kolkata, and given the poor quality of water, people started depending increasingly on these small scale independent providers of water. The government then did checks and discovered that there were three unlicensed SSIPs that were providing water to the people and sealed them shut. So these ad hoc interventions of the government are not the need of the hour anymore, and there is need for regular intervention by the government. Also, so by studying these inadequacies of the formal water supply system, and also by studying the emergence of these small scale independent providers, the aim is to actually recognize these small scale providers of water and recognize that they are not merely a temporary solution that it was considered, but are here to stay in the long run. Uh, Proper treatment of water according to safe standards needs to be ensured through proper governmental regulations, and also the awareness that not all packaged drinking water is clean water. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kriti, for giving a very crisp overview of Kolkata scenario of alternate sources and what is the relationship between the main source and all. Let me now invite Karthikeyan Ramalingam to make his presentation with, I think, another case study. But before I invite him, a quick overview of his resume. Karthikeyan Ramalingam is an independent researcher based out of Tamil Nadu. He has previously served as a public policy consultant with State Planning Commission, Government of Tamil Nadu, where he has worked on drafting the state water policy. His research focuses on water-related issues, particularly social determinants, equity, and justice. He has keen interest in water supply systems, small-scale water service providers, watershed management, and interconnections between water and agriculture. His work spans action research, policy advocacy, and field-based studies. In addition, he also teaches geography, environment, forestry to UPSC aspirants for more than 10 years now, helping them develop a deeper understanding of these subjects in the context of civil service preparation. He holds a bachelor's in forestry, postgraduate diploma in environmental law and policy, and a master's in water policy and governance, with, of course, silver medal for academic excellence from TIFF, Mumbai. So welcome, Karthikeyan, once again, and thank you so much for accepting this invitation. Over to you. And I know I have to play your presentation, right? Karthikeyan, are you? Yeah. Let me just, do you want to start or should I play the presentation on?
We can start simultaneously.
Okay. Do you see it? Is the presentation visible?
Yes, the presentation visible.
Please go ahead.
Thank you, Mansee, and thank you, Wednesdays for Water, for having us. Right, it's a privilege to be presenting our paper here. So I'm Karthikeyan. The presentation is about Chennai, where it's largely based upon two major factors. One is our article, another is the Chennai study comes from the master's thesis, where understanding the issues, challenges, and pertaining to the centralized pipe water supply and growth of small-scale service providers. The study was done in 2019 and 20. Next slide, please. Whereas centralized water supply system is being built on 5 major pillars. The pillars include quality of the water, quantity of the water provided to the public, accessibility for all populations, affordability by all, and reliability of water provided to the public. Right? Next slide, please. Whereas the study is based upon a similar research methodology as Kriti has mentioned with respect to it, where in Chennai, I have studied with respect to 450 household data collections and 15 SSPs has been collected through a semi-structured interview. Next slide, please. And in the image of the Chennai map, you will be able to see 200 15 zones and 200 wards. The 15 wards has been filled with 200 zones. Each and every ward, we have taken each and every zone, we have taken one ward as a representation. Next slide, please. Each and every ward, we have taken each and every zone, we have taken one ward as a representation. And this study has been done through stratified sampling method. How did we stratify? Based upon 2011 census data, we found that census states 99% of household as piped water supply. Remember the point, we will build perspectives based on it. So from the census, we have categorized the entire 200 wards into high coverage, medium coverage, and low coverage. And each of the coverage areas, we picked 5 wards, and that has been done by the stratified random sampling methodology. And the wards numbers has been mentioned with respect to it. Within the ward, we also done transit walk, and we found lower income group, middle income group, and higher income group. Based upon that, within that we studied. The idea was to equally distribute the sample, 10 in each lower, middle, and higher income group. But some of the wards did not happen as we wished with respect to it, but it's a very collective work done. Next slide, please. So here you will be able to see household dependence on water resources to meet all domestic water demand from the Chennai city, where total sample is 450. 80% of the population had piped water connection in their homes, where census says 99% has piped water connection. Our study had differences. Within that, 36% of the population had in-house water connection. A larger percentage, more than 48%, had outside the home, which is a common tap at the streets with respect to the water connection. And 15% of the population households alone has been exclusively dependent on water for the drinking purposes from the centralized pipe water supply. Next slide. The household dependence for the centralized piped water supply system for drinking and domestic use also varies across the classes. If you from this bar chart, you will be able to see the orange will indicate dependency, yellow indicates drinking, and green indicates drinking after treatment. The lower income group has higher usage in all three categories, followed by the middle income group, followed by the higher income group, upper income group, right? Within this, the treatment also varies between the upper and the lower income group. In the upper income group, treatment means having an in-house RO treatment plant, whereas for the lower income group, treatment means boiling and filtering with cloth. So there is a huge difference between the two. And more population are dependent on centralized pipe water supply for domestic drinking and with drinking from the lower income group. That is the major understanding that we get from it. And this is not the only source of water what Chennai uses with respect to it. Chennai uses other sources of water. Next slide. Chennai uses other source of water that has been categorized ward-wise on your screen, where the darker blue color will show Chennai Metropolitan Water Supply Sewerage Board, which is CMWSSB water. After that, we have groundwater, where larger section of population add groundwater as wells, tube wells, and wells in their homes. And tanker lorries are the major source of water, which also comes from the groundwater. So private tanker lorries were available. RO water is given in blue color, which is packaged drinking water. You will be able to see a very large representation across the wards, all the wards. And Chennai Metropolitan Water Supply and Sewerage Board also provides tanker to the areas where piped connections is not available, to the areas where common tank is available at the streets and people have to fetch it. Where some of the places common tank is also not available, people have to fetch in the pots, plastic pots, and they take it with respect to it. Next slide, please. What we also found across both Kolkata and Chennai is 21 unique combinations of water sources has been routinely used by the people to fulfill their domestic water demand. What do you mean by 21? Sachin will be speaking about it in the upcoming slides, where it's a combination of all the water together. What we found in Chennai is very dramatic, which is far different from Kolkata. Kolkata has a lesser dependence, where Chennai had a huge dependence. 89.1% of household, HS stands for household for your clarity, 89% of 89.1% of household source water from the combination of two or more sources, where 46% source water from three or more sources. We also found in Chennai 92% of sampled households depend on groundwater either directly or indirectly. Directly means they are taking it from the well, any kind of well, tube well or the normal well. Indirectly means where the tanker lorries of Chennai Metropolitan Water Supply Board or private water supply board is being providing with respect to it. This shows the quantity of dependence from all possible sources to be provided with respect to it. Next slide, please. Where the perception of Chennai Metropolitan Water Supply Sewerage Board, which is about the piped water supply, where the people believed it is unsafe. We had 80% of people who had household connection among the survey sampled of 450. Within this 80% is converted into 100%. We found 75% of the population said they feel piped water supply is risky to consume, to drink because of various factors. And then you have 16% of the population who said they don't have trust, they lack trust from the government water supply, piped water supply. 4% of the population said problems of the past is hindering them to consume. Another 3% of the population said sewage mixing with the piped water supply. The idea of centralized pipe water supply is to have a separate pipelines for sewage and separate pipelines for drinking water. So it should not mix at all by any chance, but there is a mixing that has been done. And then chemical and living standards. Next slide, please. So to sum it up, the issues of centralized pipe water supply and its challenges in Chennai, Coverage versus usage. Coverage states 99% according to census, where the study found 80%. Within the 80%, 36.7 population add water pipe connection inside the house. 48% add piped connection outside the house, which is common. 36%, 36.9, which is 37% of population approximately consume it for drinking, but with conjunctive use of other sources. 15% of population exclusively consume piped water supply for drinking purposes. Moving on to the second major group of challenge, which is social expectations and the quality issues. 75% of the sampled population said consuming of water is risky, which we already have seen in the earlier slide. So moving on to the third part, which is centralized piped water supply technology and appropriate execution of the technology. There is an aging water infrastructure, which is outdated pipelines, erratic water supply schedules, frequency and duration, and the amount of water is also been changing during the times of summer, which is lean season, and Chennai does not get rainfall during the times of southwest monsoon. Chennai gets rainfall during the times of northeast monsoon, for your kind understanding, which means summer is extremely harsh and the water availability is very, very less in case of Chennai. 133 households, as mentioned, reduction in frequency of water supply during summer, and 115 households mentioned reduction in timing during summer, which means during the times of lean season, water availability is way lesser with respect to it. Next slide, please. So this is to understand the context of centralized piped water supply. Next, we move on to the next slide, which we will understand small scale service providers who are considered to be the lifeline of Chennai, and they account for various providers who will include tanker lorries, private tanker lorries, RO water distributors, which is packaged drinking water, who will come in 20-liter jars. Most of you will consume it, and also comes in 1 liter, 2 liter, and 5 liter things, and also groundwater sellers, which again comes from tank waters or groundwater from the household itself, right? Dependency pattern varies. 70% of surveyed household heavily rely on packaged drinking water. I'm not counting the other people, only the packaged drinking water is 70%. High dependency on SSPs has been present in peri-urban, where the pipe water is not available, and in informal settlements, which is limited to the pipe water supply. Next slide, please. Where we move on to the dependency on ward wise, whereas you will be able to see the legend. In the legend, the light blue color indicates RO water, which is packaged drinking water. You will be able to see the dominance of packaged drinking water across all the surveyed wards, and the other ones will include the combinations of SSPs, which includes private tanker lorries, RO jars, and other things. Next slide, please. Whereas you will be able to see within the SSPs, next slide, within the SSPs, tanker lorries, private tanker lorries are the major distributors. We can call them as a backbone of SSPs in Chennai, especially during the times of summer. And 43% of households depend on tanker lorries, both government tanker lorries and the private tanker lorries. Next slide. Within this, the pricing is also not being regulated. The pricing is extremely varying between summer and non-summer seasons, where the good amount of water. The packaged drinking water, which is RO jars dependency, if you look into it, it is extremely different from Kolkata. In case of Kolkata, you will be able to see upper consumes large amount of packaged drinking water and the lower consumes less amount of packaged drinking water. But it does not show any variations in Chennai, where all upper, middle, and lower income groups consumes packaged drinking water almost equally with respect to it. 70% of sampled consumes packaged drinking water. 45% of sampled household depends on packaged drinking water. 70% of household depends purely for drinking purposes. Irrespective of the income level, packaged drinking water is used for the drinking purposes, which is above 60% in all groups. Middle income will go 70% and more. And the perception of drinking water from the packaged drinking water is reported extremely high compared with respect to the centralized pipe water supply. Next slide, please. The biggest question that has been raised now is, what is the purpose of drinking a packaged drinking water? So according to Folds, it has been mentioned that there are two reasons. One being what is in it, other being what is not in it. Europeans buy packaged drinking water because of the presence of minerals in it, where Americans buy packaged drinking water because chlorine is not in it for the taste purposes. But Chennai, what we found is, buys the packaged drinking water because scarcity of water, quality of water is poor, that we found from the perception. Quantity of water varies according to the summer. Accessibility is not available, which we discussed in the peri-urban and informal settlements. Reliability also varies during the times of summer from the frequency and timing of durations, which are the base fundamental pillars of centralized pipe water supply. So it raises a bigger questions. What is the purpose of a centralized piped water supply, and whether we are able to fulfilling it? Next slide, please. So we come to the conclusion of Chennai, whereas 74% of household depend on SSPs, which is packaged drinking water, and private tanker lorries, where 80% of connection is with respect to centralized piped water supply, which is almost comparable among the two, right? So it raises a bigger question again. Then second point, 15% of sampled household exclusively rely on centralized pipe water supply, whereas 45% of sampled household rely exclusively on packaged drinking water. So the question on, are we still going to call them as small scale water suppliers? The biggest question rising with respect to it. Is it correct to call them as small scale water suppliers? Can we still undermine them, ignore them, not regulate them in terms of quality, affordability, and environmental concerns? So this raises the bigger questions, and it also raises the issue of they have to be regulated, they have to be controlled, and they cannot be ignored further. With this, I conclude and leave it to Sachin on the next part. I just took 1 minute extra. I hope I'm
No,
excused.
it was really enlightening, and I have a lot of questions, but I also see questions are dropping in the chat box. Thank you so much, Karthikeyan, for this insight, and especially in the when you said why Americans drink it, why Europeans drink it, and why Chennai has to drink it. So it's a very eye-opening thing for me as well, and somewhere it also raises questions on our fundamental right to access to water to large extent as well. But let me control my emotions and invite our, I will say, star campaigner of the day of this project, also a good friend, Sachin Tiwale. So before I invite him, I would again like to do a brief introduction. Dr. Sachin Tiwale specializes in studying water governance related issues with a specific focus on equity and justice. His work delves into the intersection of the physical natural water system and human systems, exploring how these systems interact, influence, and shape each other. His research interests span water supply, irrigation management, watershed management, and small scale water service providers. Prior to joining ATRI, he was affiliated with the Center for Water Policy and Governance at TIS Mumbai. As a development practitioner, he implemented watershed management programs in tribal regions of central India and northern Maharashtra. Sachin holds a bachelor degree in chemical engineering and a master's degree in water management from IIT Delft. And he has completed his PhD in policy studies from IIT Bombay. Thank you so much, Sachin. And you know that I have been after your life for nearly 3 months to have this session. So finally, we are here, and over to you. You heard both Kriti and Karthikeyan, and we would like to give us an overview and where are we looking forward with this.
Thank you, Mansee, for inviting us. Let me share my screen. Is it visible?
Not yet coming. Yes, visible. Go ahead.
So, Karthikeyan and Kirti had already set the stage by describing what is the situation of the pipe water supply into metropolitan cities and what is the dependency on the what we call the small scale water service providers. I will build on this. So this is my presentation plan. I will talk about broadly about the limitation of the centralized pipe water supply, which I have already talked, but I will dwell more on it. When we talk about the centralized pipe water supply, it means there is a single source from which water is drawn for the city. It's treated in a centralized system, what we call as a water treatment plant. And then it's distributed across the city through the network of pipelines. In case of large cities, there can be more sources and there can be multiple water treatment plant, but still it will come under the purview of the centralized system. Then I will talk about the dependency of the packaged drinking water, which I'll just explain by the Kirti and Karthikeyan. I will just build on it. And we will discuss about the emergence of alternatives and what are the governance and policy challenges are in front of us. So this is based on our paper, which is recently published in EPW. So the people who are interested can go through it. We are basically presenting this paper to all three of us in today's session. So let me go through, let me invite you to read this quote, which is talk about the centralized pipe water supply, which is a technology which is frozen in time. Quote says, if time travel were possible and an engineer from the 1860s could travel in time to 2019, he, because the first female engineer had not graduated yet, would not recognize much of the technology we have today, like mobile or smartphone, but he would definitely recognize our current pipe water and sanitation infrastructure, as it looks and operates almost exactly the same as it did 150 years ago. Certainly, there have been significant improvements in the sector, especially in water and wastewater treatment, But the principle on which the pipe water technology is based have not seen any fundamental changes since 1860s when it was introduced or reintroduced on a large scale. This was quoted by Corleen Van Berg, and you can go through this link which is provided on the screen for more details. Now let's move toward what are the issues with the centralized pipe water supply, which was celebrated as a successful technology in 19th century in Europe and Northern America. This was intended to provide universal access to all. It means every household in the city will have access to the pipe water supply, and also it assures the universal provisioning. It means every household will receive water supply services exactly the same in terms of the pressure, quality, quantity, reliability, and so on. And so when we talk about what is happening in case of this water supply situation in the most of the cities in India, they are facing lots of issue in terms of the access and coverage. And when we try to analyze the contributing factors, what are the causes for this? The causes are the rapid urbanization, social and political processes, because of which water supply is not there for few people or few section of society. Poor cost recovery, high non-revenue water, delayed maintenance, old and leaky infrastructure, lack of investment, and insufficient managerial practices. And therefore, entire efforts are focused on addressing these factors. But while we do not question the nature of the centralized pipe water supply, we take it for granted. We assume that it is the superior technology for serving all the households in the cities, and we never problematize its limitation. And to ensure the relevance of this technology, we have made many changes, technological changes as well as institutional changes in past several decades. Those include improvement in water treatment, SCADA, NRW reduction, smart meters, and so on. And also we had urban water reform, service level benchmarks, soft loans, and grants for the various ULBs so that we can establish the relevance of the technology. But here we are not yet raising question about the relevance of the technology for Indian cities. Even globally, there are questions are raised about the centralized pipe water supply, including cities in the global north, because it has very high capital investment and technology is quite rigid. I will explain what that rigidity means. Also, in several cities, we are facing issue of aging and decaying water infrastructure, lag, repair, and maintenance. And water supply engineers in cities across the world are facing dual challenges. First of all, the restoring existing decaying system, mostly in the central part of the city, and building new one to meeting the growing demand, especially on the periphery of the city. And there are several issues with the water quality. No water supply engineer can vouch for the water quality which is delivered at the consumer end. Because though we have the safe water sources or upgraded treatment facility, it is important to look at that what happens to that water when we pump that water into the distribution network, where the pipelines are old as 30 years, 50 years, or 100 years old. Those pipelines are in proximity of the sewage, and there are issues like the pipe material release, biofilm formation, heavy metals, emergent contaminants, accumulation of the resuspension of the loose deposits, and so on. And these are problems also faced by the global north. If you are interested, you can just Google about the Flint water crisis, which was faced by the cities in America. Also, at the one hand, so there are several limitations of the technology, and also on other hand, people are becoming more and more sensitive towards the water quality, as we have also depicted in the surveys conducted in Kolkata and Chennai. So we have our social expectations have also increased in terms of the quality. But what is happening and what are the challenges for the water supply engineer? As I said, this technology was celebrated as a success in 19th century. And but this technology has created various limitations on the existing water supply engineers, because they had the trajectory of this technology in terms of the capital investment and institutional trajectory is set, and therefore they do not have much freedom to make the required changes or adapt to the new ones. Because of the path dependency nature, the engineers have several limitations. They have to go with this maladapted technology. Though we know there is a high cost, high high losses, high operation maintenance cost, still we are continuing with this technology in all our cities and towns. And also at the other end, this is a very monopolistic technology which resists the emergence of alternatives. And in this background, globally, scholars are consistently discussing about what are the alternatives under the umbrella term called as the sustainable urban water management. So people are saying that even scholars are demanding that we should have flexible, adaptive, and resilient water supply system to respond to increasing uncertainties, especially the climate change. And therefore, even policymakers are asking for the alternatives to this system and asking for can we have the decentralized as well as a centralized as a hybrid water supply system in the cities. Even in the developing world, the developed countries are also trying the same. But the implementation of the hybrid system has not gone beyond the demonstration projects, pilot small scale demonstration projects, even in global north. And so this is the situation. But When we comes to the centralized pipe water supply technology in the cities in the global south, particularly in India, there are additional challenges over and above the challenges we discuss. First of all, universal coverage was never achieved in any of our cities. As we have seen in Chennai and Kolkata, this coverage is only 80%. It means 20% population is not connected to the pipe water supply. And also, which is often not discussed, that centralized pipe water supply prerequisites two things. That for successful implementation of the centralized pipe water supply, we need planned urban growth. So the planner should know that how the city is going to grow, in which direction, in which part of the city, and how much. Then only planners can plan the pipes which are going to serve for next 20, 30, 50 years. And for various reasons, urbanization in Indian cities is not planned. Also, this technology needs a lot of sophistication, because for a successful implementation of the centralized pipe water supply, I should know the water flows and pressure in every node of this network, which is spread around entire city. But we cannot have it because our networks are haphazardly expanded because of several reasons. And yet, the CPWS has remained a dominant paradigm. Still, urban planners, water supply engineers, city administrators, policymakers are only thinking about the pipe water supply. If you open any plan document or the water supply master plan of any of the cities, the major focus is on the pipe water supply. Even alternatives which are existing across the cities are even not even acknowledged by the administrators and policymakers. So in this context, we have just heard about what happened in case of the two cities. Now the question is why we had chosen two cities, why Kolkata and Chennai? So first of all, this Kolkata and Chennai has a long history of pipe water supply, around more than 150 years old. In Kolkata, pipe water supply was started around 1872, and in Chennai, it was around 1865. Also, these two cities have received lot of attention from the state planners as well as the central planners, because they were the growing centers. So these cities would receive a larger capital investment which was needed for the development of the pipe water supply. They also this pipe water supply were also built by the trained colonial engineers, and they also received adequate engineering input because of their long legacy. We acknowledge that there were tremendous urbanization pressure also on the cities, but at the same time, they have also received a lot of capital investment. And despite that, we have seen what is the status of the centralized pipe water supply in those metropolitan cities. Based on this, now we can imagine what must be the situation in Tier 2 and Tier 3 cities, and what is the relevance of this pipe water supply in the overall in the entire discourse of the urban water supply. And so we largely believe that the pipe water supply is the only source accessed by the people, at least in metropolitan cities where the water supply departments is capable enough and has sufficient capital investment. But what we found that people are accessing water through the combination of the multiple sources. We identified 21 unique combinations used by the various households across two cities in terms of the combination of the pipe water supply, borewell, hand pump, and so on. As I discussed, there is a heavy dependency on two or more sources. In case of Kolkata, it's a 59%. In case of Chennai, it's 89%. I'm just showing the slides which are already presented by the Karthik and Kirti, where I'm just putting two figures together of two cities, where we can see the dependence on the pipe packaged drinking water is significantly high. Also, we can see that this dependency is almost we can see the dependency is more across the classes. Even if we can see that the dependency in upper classes is very high on the alternatives, because they have shifted to self-supply mode, because they have their own bore wells, especially large apartments as well as individual row houses. Also, this is already have seen that there is a heavy dependence on the packaged drinking water in terms of the 43% in Kolkata and 70% in Chennai. So what this tells? So why this packaged drinking water has proliferated in last 1.5 decade or more than 2 decades? Because there are severe water quality concerns, as already explained in the previous presentations. And this packaged drinking water, which has evolved in last 2 decades, which had showed that it is possible to serve large section of the society with the model of the packaged drinking water, where they have the evolved and stabilized business operations. They are serving large populations. There are also different categories. So why they could penetrate such a large section of the society? Because packaged drinking water comes with the various solutions. They come with the with the international beverage companies offering sophisticated services, as well as the local manufacturers. They have this chain of the manufacturers, distributors, and retailers which are giving the proper services. And also, more importantly, this service was a prompt, reliable, and flexible. I can get the water jar on a phone call. And because of all these things, this technology and this model has penetrated in Indian cities in last 1.5 decade or 2 decades. And at the same time, we have also seen that the cities are also heavily depending on the groundwater. Not only groundwater only accessed by the wells and borewells, but all the packaged drinking water industry is accessing the groundwater. Also, the most of the tankers in a peri-urban areas which are supplying water to the cities are also extracting groundwater. And therefore, groundwater dependency is very high, especially in Kolkata, in Chennai, it's a 92%. So is it a concern? So if you ask any mainstream water supply engineer, they will say we should replace all these SSIPs, all these alternatives and groundwater with the pipe water supply. We should build more and more dam, more treatment plant, and expand the network. That is the assumption, because mainstream thinking is that the pipe water supply is the only sophisticated way of having water supply and not the other sources. But what we argue that when we have such a high dependence in groundwater, this should be considered as the positive sign, because when we say that when cities grow, they build water supply dams and they will bring water from the neighboring tribal region or the agriculture region, there is a competition between the agriculture water use and urban water use, especially when our all basins are closed, there's a scarcity of water, there's a conflict between the irrigation and urban water supply. And when we brought water to the cities, it means we are depriving the people who are living in the adjacent region, and we are also depriving from them all the economic opportunity that water provides to them in terms of the livelihood. So if you are depending on groundwater, this should be considered and this should be acknowledged in the water supply discourse. We should build on that, because that is water which is available in the aquifer of the city itself. I will talk more about it in our question and answer session. So what this model tell us? As I said earlier, in developed countries, people are struggling how to get rid of the centralized water supply system, and they are looking for the alternative model and trying hybrid. But here, what we have seen that since last 1.5 to 2 decades, there's already model has evolved. There is a packaged drinking water model which is serving millions of people across cities. It is a well-established model, and we cannot undermine that model, because when we say that those are the alternatives, often it is a belief that the scale must be smaller, but it is not the case. As we have seen that in Chennai, the dependence on the packaged drinking water is 70%, which is equivalent to the pipe water supply, which is 80%. So therefore, we cannot undermine them, we cannot avoid them, we cannot ignore them, and it is not possible for us, let us accept that, it is not possible for us to replace them in near future because of the various reasons. And therefore, now the question is, now this entire in the packaging water industry is non-regulated. And whether it is, therefore, the question is, it is appropriate to not to regulate industry when our millions of households are depending on water, which is a very basic thing. There are several issues about the quality assurance, because when we do not know whether how well what is the water quality, and also there are inadequate disinfection of the water jars before refilling, because many times we see that jars are quite dirty from outside. We do not know whether they are adequately disinfected before refilling. Also, as Kriti explained, in Kolkata, there are water jars falsely bearing the labels of the national and transnational companies, which provides the water of degraded quality to the end users. There are question of the affordability, whether the market prices which are charged by these various players are affordable to the citizens. There are groundwater, because all this packaged drinking water industry is flourishing on the groundwater. We do not know how much groundwater they are extracting and what is its impact on the groundwater level. We do not know about the fairness of the service delivery, and there are several concerns about the reverse osmosis as a technology itself, because of the wastage of water and also because all the essential minerals are removed. And therefore, in context of these all challenges, we need a strong regulatory mechanism to regulate this industry. That is one aspect. And second aspect is that whether what are we going to learn from this model, because this model is very promising model. That's what we agree arguing, that this tells us that this model, typically packaged drinking water, which is we call as a decentralized treatment and non-pipe mode of delivery, where water is delivered to the households in a plastic jar. And since long, the engineers and policy makers are arguing that we should segregate the domestic water use and the drinking water use, because we need a drinking water per capita per day not more than 3 to 5 liters, and we need that water of very high water quality standards. But at present, since the domestic water need and the drinking water are is not separated, we are treating 135 liters per capita per day, assuming that CPHO standard is followed in the water treatment plant. And it is very and the municipal water treatment plant has its own limitation because they have the standardized operations of filtration operation treatment processes where we cannot remove the, for example, emerging contaminants like microplastic. And if you want to do that, the cost of the treatment will be very high. So instead, what we are arguing that it is better to segregate those. Even scholars globally arguing for that, so that we can afford to have very sophisticated treatment facility where we can remove the pesticide, emerging contaminants, PFAS, and we can have the better quality of water, which is the 3 to 5 liters per capita per day. And the segregation is essential. And what we see that the segregation is already happening. The households within the cities in India are accessing water from the multiple sources. They have already segregated at the household level which water they are going to use for the drinking purposes, which water they are going to use for the other domestic use, which which we have already seen in terms of the 21 combinations. So this is a clear-cut opportunity for us because this model is there outside. We have to build on it, and which provides a great opportunity as policymakers as well as the city administrators, because this model has demonstrated it has efficiency, it has evolved, it has stabilized, and it is serving a large section of society. If 2 decades ago, if I would have argued that let us provide the water to, let us say, 70% of the Chennai population through the 20-liter jar, which will be some few millions, nobody would have believed in that. But right now, this is actually happening. And though we are not accepting this model at a this policy level, but some of the municipal corporations are already practicing this. For example, there are water ATMs which are there in Bengaluru and Delhi, where water ATMs are provided in the localities where the pipe water supply is not there. So these municipal corporations have adopted this, but they are not, but these alternatives are not discussed at the policy level. So, but there are certain concerns which we would like to raise over here. There are opportunities, but there are concerns about the affordability and RO purification technology. But our argument is that these concerns can be worked out. We can have the better technology where we can get rid of the limitations of the RO, and we can also work with the issue of the affordability. For that, we need have more pilots and experiments to evolve appropriate and context-specific institutional arrangements. Because when we see that pipe water supply, which is the obvious choice for any water supply engineer today, that pipe water supply has evolved over 2 centuries. Evolution in terms of, as I said, in terms of the institutional arrangement as well as in terms of the technology. Therefore, our argument is that this model of decentralized treatment and the non-pipe mode of service delivery, which is already there, we can remove its limitations, we can adopt it, we need to do some experimentation considering the local context, and we can have the combinations of the centralized as well as these decentralized systems where we can in a real sense meet the requirement of and reach the goal of universal water access to all. So this is the conclusion. This paradigm shift is needed while managing urban water supply. CPWS, we should accept that there are inherent technological limitations. And also these small scale water service providers which are already there, which are operating all the cities in India, this is not a temporary transitory phenomena. They are going to be there. If we choose not to regulate them, they are going to flourish further. And in this whole business, if the business as usual approach continued, the households are going to suffer because of the industry is not regulated. Therefore, we need to acknowledge the contribution of these small scale water service providers, which are serving a significant section of the society in terms of the water quality and quantity. And therefore, we need regulatory mechanism. We need to talk about the groundwater as alternative. And we can also explore what is the role of the utility. For example, existing utility should consider groundwater as one of the source. They can also play a role of the small scale water service providers. They can have their own plants. They can have their own system of the service delivery, or they can have the partnership with the other water supply providers, packaged drinking water, which are already there. We can have the multiple models. We need to experiment with them and see what works where in what context. And therefore, this model has shown his worth, and we need to experiment with this. That's the whole argument we are trying to make through this paper. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sachin, for this really extensive overview. And I can understand that there are so many concerns, and I am also actually full with questions, but I think I will do the honor to invite our participants here to first raise their questions. I see Shakti has raised a lot of points, but For respecting every participant here, Shakti, I will invite you to have one of your question to start the conversation, and then we can take more, and then we'll come back to you at the end. So which one do you want to ask? Shakti, if you can hear me.
So my question is to Mr. Sachin sir. The thing is, he just raised a point that the jars that have been used in the, it's not properly disinfected. So can it lead to antimicrobial resistance or spread of bacteria and create a widespread savage in the Chennai or Kolkata or whatsoever? That's my question. And if you have time, you can also answer what role that does water credits play in these things. Yeah.
Yeah. So yes, because we have seen in some cases that the water jars are not disinfected, and many cases we do not know what methodology they follow for appropriate disinfection of the jars. And definitely it will lead to the water contamination and microbial spread depending upon what contaminants are there already which are present in the jar. So it will have it is definitely is a public health concern, I can say. And about the second point about the credits, that I do not get your point. What the credit you meant by you?
Uh,
The grid system.
so there are a lot of standards like Vera and stuff like that, where once the water is recycled by somebody, they gain points, so that something similar to carbon credits. So people who uses water beyond their limits will have to pay for the recyclers who recycles the water, uh, something like that. There are a lot of standards in India, abroad, and all. Something like even plastic recyclers are being compensated through plastic certificates by the people who, like FMCG companies, does that. So, and carbon emissions, those who does carbon emissions, like polluting companies, pay to the people who offset their emissions, like solar farms and people who plant trees and stuff like that. So, and there is also, I could see a lot of water trading systems across the world. So even the Carbon Standard Vera has also launched a water certification scheme. So I was asking about that, if you can shed some light on that, anybody. Yeah.
So I don't know whether how that water credit system will work, but definitely we can try. But before that, we need to have an appropriate regulatory system, where we can manage and regulate the functions of these small-scale water service providers, including the packaged drinking water as well as the lorries, how they functions, from where they get the water, how much they get the water, how much water they exploit. Are they doing any recharge operations for the groundwater? What is the water quality? Are they maintaining the data of the water quality they are putting? For example, in case of food, you have the appropriate labeling, which is prescribed by the FSSAI, which says the packaging, what is the content and quality. Similar some kind of regulation we also need for this industry, and one can try with the credits also. But I'm not sure how it will help the citizens.
Yeah, maybe I will add a little bit what Shakti was talking about. I mean, the blue credit or the water credits. I think the presentation today was more focusing on the alternates, and we are really far from even providing water to all of them. And in that scenario, coming to more sophisticated, as we also heard our speakers, that it requires a really sophisticated way to have complete, 100% water supply, centralized water supply, which is far as a utopia, and that is why this alternate market has emerged. But these blue credits are also there all over the world. So I think water ATMs, so as we are slowly inching towards new ideas, like 20 years ago, I cannot imagine drinking water from bottle. So I hope sometime soon it is coming. So let us take another question here. How can we ensure? And I think both the presentations, Karthikeyan, you have your hand raised. Please go ahead.
To just add on to the question on water credit, the water credit, which works on the similar lines with respect to the carbon credit, as he was speaking about,
Yes.
is discussed largely in COP27, United Nations Framework Convention to Climate Change. Whereas the idea is, if someone, the same as the carbon credit, where if someone has been conserving the carbon, they will get a value towards it. if some other company, let's say company A is conserving or sequestrating carbon and company B wants to release the carbon. So
Yes.
company A gets a value and the value is being traded to company B. So they can release it with respect to it. Similarly, water credit can also be there. But the biggest question is the carbon credit itself has been criticized largely because at looking closer into it, the value of carbon is not reduced. It is only exchanged from one place to another. Are
It's
we
a
going to
transaction
apply the
cost.
same thing in water credit also by making sure Sachin will be able to reduce the usage of water and he will conserve it. But Karthikeyan by its arrogance misuse the water and then will buy the credit from it and how it goes on to the conservation. This is the one question. Second, it is again controversial because it makes the water as a commodity. Whereas
Yes.
where the question on water as a basic human right comes is always has to be discussed with respect to it. Number two. Number three, richer entities will be able to purchase the credit and misuse it, whereas again the environmentalism of the poor will continue to go on with respect to it. Fourth, if you look into the carbon credit, the idea of carbon credit for a lay person will believe that if I have 1 acre of land, 2 acre of land, 3 acre of land, or something like that, if I plant trees and sequestrate carbon, will I get money? Which is not in reality. 500 acres of land or more has to be present with you. You should be able to plant in such a large area, and then you get the credit. For that, you have to get a certificate. This sounds good on paper. Whether it can be converted into reality is always been the case to put across.
Yeah, I think, and also as far as the exchange of water is already happening between the water and wastewater, if we look at the urban-rural divide and other things, but how are they put in the certification model? I think it needs more rigor and discussion. Probably it also goes beyond the scope of discussion of today's session. But let me invite Anirudh Kishore. You also have more questions. Maybe you can first ask one question and then we'll see if time permits, we can take the other questions. I'm going to
Yeah.
share all the questions to the speakers. It's in the chat box also. Anirudh, are you still around or if I should read your question? Go ahead, Anirudh.
Okay. Hi. First of all, thanks a lot for making this presentation. So I'm someone who studied water and currently I live in Goa. And we are working with the government trying to make a case for more localized water security pilots. But we get constant pushback from the state saying, well, it's not really a problem of today, which is partially for a few people during the seasons of monsoon, right? So that's where the state is. So this gave me a lot of kind of things to latch on to that I can take into my next meeting and really put all the cards on the table. So thanks for that. But my question is around this groundwater dependence. So groundwater through bore wells, yes, but also through these traditional dug wells that are present at the back, at the backyards of people's homes. But also this idea of community dug wells that you see in Goa, where it's maybe like 6 or 7 different households which manage it, take water from it. But also in terms of course, these tanker culture that's really picking up in Goa right now. So groundwater actually is a lot of different things. Even though it's very invisible, it's very present in terms of how houses consume water. So my question is around what it takes for the regulation around groundwater to change in terms of land ownership, in terms of how we measure and meter groundwater usage, and third, in terms of pricing in itself. And specifically, what I'm looking at is at the state level or at the policy level, what kind of conversations need to be pursued so that we can bring about these changes, but also at a consumer level, because it's very sensitive to go to a house owner who's owned a well for like 80, 90 years to go and say, well, now you need to pay some money to use your own water that's on your land. So how do I navigate the policy space, but also how do I navigate this behavior change aspect around it? Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you. Sachin, you want to go for it?
Yeah, sure. So it's a quite a complex challenge for practitioner as well as a policymaker. So first thing we need for a groundwater management is that we need to segregate the land ownership and the groundwater ownership. We need to understand groundwater as a commons. That is the first policy change we need in law. A second thing, yes, people are consuming water from the shallow aquifer as well as from the deeper aquifer. They have made their own investment in terms of the capital investment as well as they're also paying the operational cost in terms of the electricity while fetching that water. So the question is, that how much we are going to charge and what tariff should be there and so on. I think these challenges can be incrementally handled. Before that, I think what we need to do in case of the in context of the urban water supply, at least we need to acknowledge that there is a groundwater exist in the city and it is a use by the people, and it should reflect in the master plan, city master plan, or the urban water supply plan which is present of any of the cities. Apart from Bangalore, where I'm right now, where the 40% water is coming from the groundwater, in case of Mumbai or Chennai, groundwater is not acknowledged the way it is its contribution in the total water supply of the city. So first of all, I would say we can go stepwise, acknowledging the groundwater sources, and going before regulating that, we need to see the way urban water supply, where there are civil engineers who are trained to manage dams, who are trained to study the surface water supply system based on the precipitation, catchment modeling, and so on. Similarly, we need to study also groundwater. What are the type of aquifers are there? What are the aquifer characteristics in terms of solutivity, transmittivity? What is the yield? How aquifers are differ on their their delineation across the city? What are their yields? So these study needs to be done. The way we understand and analyze the surface water, the same way we need to understand the groundwater, and then we identify the areas where we can have the good yield, which part of the city, where we have also in terms of the quality, what is the water quality, how the yield changes over the period of time, how yield varies with the season, how quality varies with the season. So this has to be done meticulously the way we are doing at present the surface water. For example, dam water level are monitored every day. But what about the groundwater? So this entire approach of looking towards the groundwater, it needs to be changed. It is not, for example, what this BWS is, that the Bangalore Water Supply Sewerage Board does. It is asking people to now you have to use the rainwater harvesting. In Chennai, it is the Chennai Metropolitan Board says you have to do the rainwater harvesting and you use the groundwater and you conserve it. But I would pose the question in reverse way. I would ask him what BWSSB is doing in terms of the groundwater. How many geohydrologists have their on their payroll? What is their understanding of the aquifer of the cities? So it is not about this regulating wells and charging them and tariff. That is not the my real concern. My real concern is trying to understand the groundwater which is there beneath the city. The way you hiring civil engineers, the way we should also have the geohydrologists which are present in these utilities. Seriously, the way you manage the surface water, meticulously monitor it, manage it in so the quality, quantity, so such manipulations, that data needs to be produced first. What we need to understand what is there, and then we can decide that how to regulate it. If the people have the bore well, whether we're going to charge it or we're going to subsidize it. But we need to have such data first, then we can see what is the contribution of the groundwater in the total water supply. So how much we are our dependency on the external surface water, what is the dependency on the groundwater, what are the recharge zone, because at the same time we also need to talk about where are the recharge zone in the city, what kind of recharge structures we need to build collectively. It is not just saying that citizens should build rainwater harvesting, but as a BWSSB, I will not look into the groundwater. That is not, I think, the fair way of working. So all these changes needs to be done gradually, and then we need to take action. The tariff and regulation comes much later stage.
Yes. CB, I saw your digital hand. I will come to you. Thank you so much, Sachin. Let's move to Bharat's question here. And, I also have many questions, but I will hold on my emotions, as I mentioned. But I think both these alternate water sources, which are more market driven and losing this regulation, are somewhere probably in domestic water supply case are also major groundwater exploiters, and there's nobody to talk about it. And in today's situation, our groundwater is based on our land holding, so that is another interesting way, because they have no relationship as such in that case. But Bharat has an interesting question. Bharat, if you are still around, um, would you like to ask question? While Bharat is coming here, I also want to share with all of you, there's a kind of a trust deficit about water supply in our system. So almost everyone is either using alternate mini treatment at home and boiling and all. Bharat, go ahead.
Yeah. Hi. My question is on, like, as Sachin sir had mentioned, like the utilities or centralized public water supply system can look at splitting the supply into drinking and non-drinking, as it has been emerged, like small service providers are a significant player. How does treated water reuse come into this system of supplying water to households in the centralized public water supply system. Since treated water reuse is the next, like you can say the next buzzword or like next thing in the market, and it is as the water scarcity and water stress is increasing, treated water reuse needs to be considered for supplying to households.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so yeah, treated water we have to use. We have to recycle the water that is that is necessary, and many cities are also experimenting with that. So apart from this splitting domestic use now and drinking use and providing water to the household, the recycling water is option is always there. For example, in many apartments in many cities have the law that if you have the apartment or township with uh, flats number more than x, maybe 200 300, you should have your own STPs. And also in that case, so we are moving also in that direction where the treatment should be done in a decentralized way. And also there are cases where people are also doing the treatment by collecting the water from the city and doing treatment at the end of the pipe. So people are experimenting both ways. So that is essential. But there are also various challenges. For example, in Bangalore, various apartments are facing challenges because they have constructed the STPs. But the question is the cost of treatment is very high. If your apartment doesn't have the a number of flats more than a particular threshold. If it's a small system of 40 flats, 50 flats, then the cost is very high. Also, there are several issues about the what is the appropriate size of the decentralized treatment. Appropriate size in terms of the economics as well as in terms of the operation, because there are a lot of operational issues. Means we cannot say that it's not like STP is built for the apartment with the 50 flats, but who is going to operate? What is the knowledge capacity we have? What are the agencies to help them in terms of any emergencies? So people are still struggling with it, with the various scales. So what is the appropriate scale? Whether it should be for individual apartment or there should be multiple apartments should come together and have the STPs in the space and all those things. So people are still struggling, and we are moving in that direction where we are promoting what a decentralized treatment.
What is interesting here, Sachin, is that we have so much of focus and impetus on water supply, whereas the interlinked wastewater, groundwater, and all pond water, for that matter, river water, they almost take a back seat. And the more we have to realize, the more we are in the. It's a paradox, I must say, that more we are really focusing on water supply only. And you already mentioned that if we only need drinking for so much and we are still putting all waste water for everyone which is treated, we are also actually creating a mammoth task of wastewater treatment for us in terms of water supply. Okay, let me quickly go to Ashlesha Gaikwad. And I think this question has been also actually addressed, but I think you have a question on industries. Ashlesha, are you still around?
Yes.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, my question is the same as I written, that are the packaged drinking water has to be transparent about the treatment process, as we are paying as much large amount as compared to public water supply. So is it possible to raise such question on these industries? Because there are
And do
rising
we have it? Very
numbers.
good question.
Yeah,
Do we
and
have
as
any
there are,
monitoring and checking for that? A very good question, Ashlesha.
yeah, because there are lots of increasing numbers of these packaged drinking water, and there are lots of increasing cases in waterborne disease as currently happening in the as GBS. So many people are shifting towards such kind of packaged drinking water. So is it possible to raise such question on that industries?
I would like to invite Kriti or Karthikeyan to answer this question.
Karthikeyan, what is your experience? I mean, I was also going to invite him for his Chennai experience because you reminded me of this film like, we had on W4W here, Tanker Mafia. And Chennai is a classic example of Tanker Mafia.
So regarding the license for the RO waters, if my understanding of the question is correct, the question was about whether there is any license provisions are available for the packaged drinking waters, right?
Yeah, and also monitoring. I mean, how do we know that they are monitored, they are regulated? I think that is the regulation word. Are these alternate waters regulated about their quality? I think that's what Ashlesha is concerned.
So any manufacturer who runs a business regarding the RO water or a packaged drinking water has to get license from Bureau of Indian Standards. In case of Chennai, they have to get a groundwater license because the RO water is being pumped from the groundwater and then treated with respect to it. The groundwater license comes from the Central Groundwater Board. After that, Sub-Collectorate Office and the Public Works Department Office, they have to get a license with respect to it. License also has to be acquired from Food and Safety Standards Authority of India for food safety standards. They also have to acquire a license from the Pollution Control Board because they are acquiring, they are harvesting the groundwater, and after that there is going to be a process. Brine water will be produced and the brine is also going to be released. So they have to acquire that license. They also have to acquire the license of hygiene certification and sanitation certification from the health department. So this will also prove it. Apart from that, whether the water, when you say that it's a 1 liter can or a 5 liter can or a 20 liter can, how do you know this is actually 1 liter? The quantity is being there. For the quantity purposes, they have to acquire the license from weights and measures for the quantity of the bottle. That has to be acquired from the Legal Metrology Act 2009. They also have to acquire license for the fire safety licenses. And no objection license has to be acquired from the panchayat, because most of the time periods, these manufacturing units are present in the outskirts of the city, and they are mostly in the panchayat areas. So a panchayat block development officers has to provide the license. Apart from this, to run the business, they also have to get the GST license from the GST department. So this has been done. Apart from this, coming to the second part of the questions, whether this is primary license to start the industry, to start the manufacturing unit. After that, month by month, every month they have to test the water quality and have to provide the report. This testing is not done by the manufacturer, rather this testing is done by the third party system. And the raw water is tested once in every 3 months. The purified water is tested every month with respect to it. They also have to have their own laboratory check. Manufacturer also has to have their own laboratory check and register with respect to it. These reports have been stored in BIS, Bureau of Indian Standards representatives, and it is renewed yearly once. And they also have the authority to do surprise visits to the regions, right? The surprise visit can happen anytime in the year, and that is their prerogative, and they can collect samples and they can test it with respect to it, right? They can also take samples from the market, which means an RO water tank is available in the market. They can take sample from the market. They can take sample from the customer, which means from my home, they can take it with respect to it as well. So these are the kinds of things which is being put across on the before starting a manufacturing unit, and also when the unit is being running, and we also look into it again and again with respect to it. The FSSAI license is given for 1 year at a time, and it has to be renewed every single time. Right, the weights and measures license is being given for a lifetime. So if a 20 liter jar quantity is being given one time license, that is it. No other license has to be given with respect to it. Whereas in case of Chennai, I am not sure about the other cities. In case of Chennai, there is also a groundwater license has to be acquired. And there is a court order from the High Court also stating that excessive groundwater cannot be exploited from the Chennai outskirts. For example, because of this, the license is not being given. How does the private tanker lorries and mostly the private tanker lorries comes into the picture because they exploit the water. I can also show you images if required from the presentation. They also acquire the water, and the license has to be acquired. When the license are not renewed and the license are not being provided by the government, in 2019 they threatened the government saying that they are going on a strike. The government has to take a setback, and 2019 was if I'm not wrong, 2020 was 21 was the election year. 19 was the national election, 21 was the state election with respect to it. 2023, the license issue came. 2023, the Tanker Lorry Association threatened they will go on a strike. Then the government has to come and take a backseat and say that, okay, we'll give you license, don't go on the strike. They did negotiations. After the negotiations, the threat that is given was withdrawn by the tanker lorries. Right? 2024 was a national election going on with respect to it. Every single time the strike announcement comes on the summer. So I leave it to you to build the nuances of the story, how things will go on with respect to it. Why this has been happening, why they announced the strike and the government calls for a negotiation, because tanker lorries are the backbones of SSP, and SSPs were the lifeline of Chennai. So because they have a huge, large hold over providing water, they can threaten. If they are actually small scale, this might not be the case. So we'll have to look into that aspect as well. I think I answered the question.
Very
I would like to-
interesting. I remember we also had Anindita Sarkar presenting her book in our Friday Water book reading session, where we invite authors to do a book review. And she was telling how, and she did go a study of Kolkata, and she was telling how the whole nexus between the tanker association, tankers, industries, government, and also all approving authorities really plays very heavy into the system. I really feel that we should actually have more discussion on this topic, because this is very much everyone's everyday life issue. And when these approvals were discussed and presented by you, Karthik, and I was constantly reminded of how did this plastic bottle thing came, and the disinfecting of every time refilling of the plastic. I mean, I don't think it can be checked so easily. But let me just invite CB Chakravarti to, and I think we will have this as our last question for the day. And I will still hold my questions and keep it for all three of you. And I also wish to inform here that Kriti had to leave the session because she has a young baby. And we are highly acknowledging and appreciating women in water, and we understand that they have special needs. So I will also share all the questions to Kriti, and of course, you all will have access to the conversation here. Over to you, Sibi. Please ask your question.
Yeah, hi, thank you. My question is to Karthikeyan, sir.
Hmm.
What is the role of rainwater harvesting and desalination in tackling Chennai water crisis?
So there are two parts. I hope the question has been completed.
Hmm.
Yes. There are two parts towards the questions. I will go one after the other with respect to the questions. Starting with respect to desalination plant, Chennai has 3 desalination plant in operation, and the 4th desalination plant was initiated in 2023. The first desalination plant, if I'm not wrong, started in 2017. The first 3 desalination plant works with the capacity of 100 MLD. So 3 in operation, 300 MLD, but effective production is going to be 260 MLD with respect to it. Number one. With respect to this production, and the 4th is the desalination plant, which was proposed as mega plant, 400 MLD. And that might come in operation somewhere in 2027, I hope so, or late 26 or early 27, according to the government. Regarding the desalination plant in Chennai, the desalination plant in Chennai is using high amount of energy and low efficiency. The model is built in that manner. How I say energy, amount of energy consumption, for 100 MLD usage, we speak about the desalination plant number 1, 2, 3 separately uses capacity of 100 MLD. If I take 100 MLD seawater per day, I will be able to produce 42 MLD of fresh water, 48 MLD of fresh water, and 52 MLD of brine water, which means it is not all 100 will be converted into drinking water, right? It's less than 50% of it. And brine water is again released with respect to the regions. It again creates environmental issue. The amount of energy consumption is high. To add on to another point with respect to it is cost. The last desalination plant, which was proposed and initiated for 400 MLD, is 4,270 something crores. Are we going to go on in this manner and put it across? I will also give you what government says in terms of usage. The first MLD, which first desalination plant, 10 lakh people will have a usage. Second and third, 9 lakh people. And the 4th desalination plant, which is 400 MLD, will 22 lakh population can have a usage. To have a reference to Chennai's population, according to 2011 census, it is 80 lakh population. And today we do have maybe around some data shows 1.4 crore population and more. Are we able to provide water from only desalination plant? No. Does Chennai requires desalination plant? Maybe it is the supply side management methodology of water management, and we are providing through the supply side management, and we are bringing the water towards it, right? So that is to the first status of, I was asked the status, this is the status of desalination plant. Second, with respect to it, is the government of Tamil Nadu brought in an act in 2001 regarding the rainwater harvesting. The movement was initiated in 2001, and the act has been brought later on in 2001 and time periods. It is mandatory for every household in Tamil Nadu to have a rainwater harvesting, and specifications has been given. If the rainwater harvesting structure is not available, you will not get a clearance for building a structure on a house or any structure with respect to it. But the bigger question comes whether the rainwater harvesting is being done according to the specifications mentioned in the Act, number one. Number two, whether it goes on with respect to usage, whether it actually has an usage and whether it collects the water with respect to it. Because what we see in reality is there is a huge violation, not just in Chennai, across the country or the world. FSI violations will be there, and large amount of urban areas has been cemented, and where the water goes on has always been a question. You also have to understand the groundwater as a source, where the recharge points doesn't have to be the same as the discharge units. Recharge points can be in some other regions and discharge units can be in some other regions. As earlier when the question on groundwater is being asked, Sachin was clearly mentioning about with respect to the fact, which is the area as the groundwater has to be identified as a common pool community resource, and then it has to be taken into considerations. I think this is the status of both in case of Chennai.
Yeah. Thank you so much, both of you, for patiently taking all the questions. And Sachin, as you know, why I was after you for this session, such a successful session. And I think we are still not done because I still could not ask my question, but I will still call it off for the day. And we can definitely have a next round of discussion. And if there is anyone who is interested to be part of this conversation, do keep joining us and keep checking our website and social media platforms. We are constantly carrying out some interesting conversations. And as the last question was raised and discussed about desalination, I wish to share with you that we had a session from Eduardo Borgemeo from University of Cambridge, and he really presented it so well that how our water system is all supply driven system, and this is where desalination comes with a big catch. And do check, we have more than 300 videos on open access, and we can continue this conversation. As I mentioned in the beginning, the very idea of W for W is to really have the conversation flowing just like the river flows. Sachin, do you have any last line for this session? And I'm already thinking of having you more and really fill it up with at least more satisfying, नहीं पूरा बात हो गया और कुछ करना है. I just want to have it more in this format, probably more speakers, and we will think about it and plan it.
Do you have time
last
for
word from you? Yes,
question?
CB?
Do you have time for one follow-up question? Which I asked.
Oh, we are already running really, really late. It's and my researchers are already really telling me if they have problem with editing. But please go ahead. Very small question, huh? And Sachin, also you can wrap it up as your last word.
That's my follow-up question. Like, if that desalination become economical and scalable, will it work like in Israel?
I have my catch on it, and I think I will leave Sachin to answer it. Please watch our session on desalination. Just type desalination Wednesdays for Water or Eduardo Borgemeo. You will really see the economics of desalination. We cannot compare Israel and India with different settings and different geopolitical apart from geophysical. So I think let us keep it like this here. And CB, if you are interested, please organize a session with us and help us find speakers. And we are very happy to take it up again. And Eduardo will be very happy as well, sure, as my fellow Cambridge person. Sachin, I mean, I really wish to have a last line from you, and so that I can give it a close call.
The last point would be, before thinking about a desalination, we need to ask that how politically we are framing our problem. So I need to raise a question about our growth model, because if you think about the planning of the city, are we considering water in the urban planning? In India, unfortunately, no. The whole understanding is that city has unlimited of water resources, so we will allow city to grow horizontally and vertically in unlimited way.
Yes.
And therefore, we will bring water from anywhere for the city, and that approach is creating problem. Therefore, we are going for desalination. Why we want to Chennai to grow such a big? Why we want to Bangalore to go big? Why we can't have 100 smaller cities spread in the region? So
These are
this,
larger questions, by the way, huh?
so
And you
this is the
rightly
question.
mentioned that we are not talking about them.
Yeah. So are we considering? The question is, are we considering water in the urban planning? No. The
No,
moment,
we don't
yeah.
have water in the development plan is all about water. And I have been also fighting this battle for 30 years now. We do not have water plan in our city's development plan. We all understand land. Water is yet to be understood. And that is why we are running these kind of conversations. I hope someday water becomes a discussion point, just like you discuss cricket over chai or over coffee or over dinner. I hope water becomes a conversation point, and it reminds me of people like Anupam Mishra ji and Anil Agrawal ji, who were like, for me, my inspiration to get into the water sector. And I think water is it has to be political subject, and it is political subject in a different way, but it has to be a political subject in a more, I will say, commons language than more as a commodity language. So I think this is a good time to call it off for the day. But before I do that, it's also important that I make an announcement for the next week and the next week, as we have been constantly doing these sessions. This Friday, we have a very interesting session, and we are having Friday Water Talkies. By the way, do join us on Friday sessions, and these Friday sessions are highly interesting. We have water arts, water talkies, water thesis, and water book reading. So we have different kinds of people coming. Also, we invite a maestro or a legend in the water sector on Friday. We call it Meet a Maestro. This Friday, we have water talkies on April 4th at 5 p.m. And we are discussing the film A Water Trilogy in Rajasthan. And we have actually our directors of the film who are from France, and they are going to have a discussion with people from Rajasthan. Do join in. More information is going to be there on the website. Other than that, next week, very interestingly, we are not going online, we are going on site. We are also walking and talking water in Kolkata on our research project with CGAP on tracking and tackling plastic pollution in the Ganga Basin, and we are doing our field work with researchers there. The week after also, we are not going online, we are going on site. Then again, we are doing walking and talking with the drop talk of our partner, FluxGen, and drop talk with FluxGen Well Labs on April 16th at Bengaluru. More information again will be there on the website. Do continue joining us on Monday Munching and Musing with Women for Water. If there are women who you think should be acknowledged and appreciated, we are constantly looking for them, to support them, to motivate them, and to encourage them continuing their profession. Thank you so much, all of you. And thanks a lot, Sachin and Karthikeyan. I hope you enjoyed this session as much as I did. And I do hope that you will stay connected with all of us as Water Connects. Thanks all the participants. Because of you, we are able to do these sessions to make them more meaningful. Thanks a lot. Thank you, all of you. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye.